basically it's...
So you can edit it, right? When I screw it up.
Yeah.
Well, that's important.
We can cut through all the...
It's not live.
We can cut through all the jumble and...
Okay.
And if you could just, as I'll ask you questions, just repeat back the question, like, you know, how long has the 42nd Street Bar been here? 42nd Street Bar has been here for, so that way I can cut myself out of, like, the majority of, hopefully, all of the questions, because it's not about me. It's about the 42nd Street Oyster Bar and you guys and your restaurant. So,
okay.
if you'd like to start off, you can tell me, and you can look at me, and we'll get you going across the camera, your name, and where we're at, and if you can go off there and start telling me how you got into it, how long you guys have been here, and kind of what you're about, maybe who you're affiliated with or anything like that, and just talk about your place.
Okay. My name is Brad Hurley, and we're at the intersection of West and Jones Street in the northwest quadrant of downtown Raleigh. The original 42nd Street Oyster Bar was founded in the early 1930s, and it stood where we are at the intersection of West and Jones Street. In 1985, there was a fellow named Thaddeus Jr. who was a restaurateur who decided that he would like to redo the old 42nd Street Oyster Bar. Mr. Ure said that it was the first meal that he ever had outside of somebody's home, his first restaurant meal, if you will, at the old 42nd Street Oyster Bar. And he wanted to redo it, but the building was too dilapidated to use, and so the building stood where our parking lot is now, and it backed up to the building that we're in right now, here at the intersection of West and Jones Street. This current operation started, we started serving on October the 28th, 1987. And we served 12 meals a week, 7 dinners, and lunch Monday through Friday for about 22 years. And now, in our most recent history, over the last several years, we have stopped our luncheon service, and we are concentrating and focused on serving dinners 7 nights a week. A lot of people ask the question, well, if you're at the intersection of West and Jones Street, how did you get the name, 42nd Street Oyster Bar? And the story goes like this. It's my understanding that there were a group of doctors who were at a convention in New York City, and they were having a good time, kicking up their heels a bit, from my understanding, on 42nd Street in New York. So when they came back to Raleigh, just after the Prohibition, then the old Oyster Bar was actually, I'm told, the first place to serve beer after the Prohibition. But people didn't talk about drinking back then, is my understanding, and so if one of the doctors who had been to the convention wanted to come to the intersection of West and Jones Street to drink a beer that afternoon, he might tell the other doctor, if he saw him at the hospital or on the sidewalk, "See you at 42nd Street, I'll be there at 5:30. And that's how the old restaurant got its name, the 42nd Street Oyster Bar. So that's a bit of the history. And they also say the old place was a haven for politicians, which were only a couple blocks away there on Lane Street. They could either drive or walk to the 42nd Street Oyster Bar. And the clientele has always been either the old place as well as the new place, a very varied mixture of clientele. They say in the old place you could sit beside of or in between a legislator on one side of you, and on the other side might be a carpenter or a brick mason. So there's a lot of stories about the old place and the folks that used to visit that old 42nd Street, and of course we've been doing business here in the new 42nd Street Oyster Bar. I like to refer to it since 1987. So we've had a lot of fun and had a lot of success in serving a lot of different folks over the last almost 26 years. All right, so what are the questions?
You're just doing awesome right now. I'm not even having to ask you anything. Any famous people that have come through here, or could you tell us about like some of the stuff that you have at the restaurant? We'll get footage of it later, but like the mural we have up here, I think Burt Reynolds is up there somewhere, something like that.
Yeah, Burt is in the mural. I'm told that Burt Reynolds frequented the old 42nd Street Oyster Bar when he was in college. He went to school at Florida State, and in the summer times, I'm told that he drove a truck to the farmers market in Raleigh and would frequent the old 42nd Street Oyster Bar. As a matter of fact, he's in our mural, and his next door neighbor brought me one day an autographed picture of Burt Reynolds. He said that he remembered going to the old 42nd Street. So, but over the years, we've had most all of North Carolina's politicians in the old place, the new place. We've had a number of stars that have been here over the years. If they're in Raleigh for performance, we've served a number of them. I won't be able to remember them all. I know that David Letterman's had dinner here. Famous Pittsburgh Pirate, a fellow named Willie Stargell, who I believe was a first baseman for the World Championship 1979 Pittsburgh Pirates. He's had dinner here. Bonnie Raitt has been here several times. Just to name a few that pop into my mind. I know there's a number of other stars that have been here over the years.
How many oysters do you guys think that you, or do you think, how much do you go through in a week's time, maybe a month's time?
The number of oysters that we have served over the years, I don't have that information handy in front of me right this second for the total number of oysters, and we've tracked that, the total number of shrimps that we've cooked for customers. But just to give you an idea, when the weather is cold, people have a tendency to eat more oysters, and particularly if it's cold and rainy outside, you better get ready because you're going to steam a lot of oysters. In the cold weather months, we typically go through anywhere from 100 to 125 bushels of oysters. A bushel, of course, is 60 pounds. A bushel makes up 4 pecks of oysters. So just for steamed oysters, we'll go through 100 to 125 bushels in a week's time. We would probably go through another 20, 25 bushels of oysters to shuck them and sell them for the half shell, the folks that like them raw. We also shuck our own shell oysters for the baked oysters that we do, such as the oysters Rockefeller, oysters Bienville, and the 42nd Street oysters. Not to mention the gallons of oysters that Chef David Greenwell buys that we use for frying, and also we use those oysters that are already shucked to in our chiapinos. In cold weather months, we serve more oysters, and Chef will probably order around 60 gallons of oysters. The folks in the oyster shucking houses are much more proficient at shucking the oysters on the half shell, the raw oysters, than we are. So we do buy gallons of oysters for the frying and the chiapinos. Okay.
Awesome. Has anybody ever found pearls in their oysters? I heard a story a couple of weeks ago. Someone found 50
Yes, people do find pearls in oysters from time to time. So that's another reason that you need to be careful when you're eating an oyster. No matter how hard the sucker tries, sometimes you can get a little shell, a broken piece of shell in an oyster, and so you need to be careful when you eat an oyster because you could find a piece of shell, and you could also find a pearl. And the pearls, most of the time, you can't see them. They're typically hidden in the folds of the oysters. So you want to make sure that you bite gently when you're eating oysters because you don't want to break a tooth. We have people, typically if we see a pearl, somebody finds a pearl, it won't be long and somebody else will find a pearl because it means that the waters that the oysters have come from are conducive to pearls being grown there. So if you find one, you'll probably find some more.
You got any ideas for questions? Is there anything you'd like to put out about 42nd Street Oyster Bar that you'd like to say, or?
Well, we here at the 42nd Street Oyster Bar, we're very proud to have been able to serve all the folks that we've served over the past 26 years. We've had a fantastic clientele. We've had a lot of fun. We have a casual atmosphere. People are comfortable coming here in a suit and tie or a tuxedo, as well as very casual. So you know, folks come here for many different reasons, many different occasions, and you'll see folks dressed in an array of different outfits. So it's casual. We have a lot of fun with it. We have 70 seats committed to our oyster bar, and we have 240 seats that we tablecloth at night that are committed to our dining room, and another 100 seats in our lounge. So we have a big restaurant here at 42nd Street Oyster Bar, and that, of course, from a planning standpoint of view, was where we spent a lot of time because we had a warehouse that had 19,000 square foot in it. How big or how small do you make the restaurant? So anyway, we made the restaurant into a 12,000 square foot, which includes the dining room, the oyster bar, the kitchen, and our offices, which are located here at the 42nd Street Oyster Bar. We committed 12,000 of the 19,000 square foot, and the other 7,000 square foot we used for some storage.
That'll work perfect.
Okay?
That'll work